it came to a time where, you know, I started lying to my own family, and then, you know, one day I just decided to, I didn't know where I was driving, but I ended up down in Byron, and, you know, I ended up in the middle of the bush, and, I hung myself.
Hello and welcome back to The Great Unloading. My name is Dennis and I am your host for this evening. So I have two boys here and quite interesting guys. But before we get into them, I just want to remind you guys, please hit the subscribe button. We have a YouTube clips video, which is basically little clips that I put together of the podcast, which is highlight reels and all that sort of stuff that you can go back to and send on to your friends. You can also just watch the important stuff if you can't be screwed watching the entire podcast. Just remember, it is going to be a little bit out of context as well. All right, so the boys I got here is Jason and Cayden. How are you, boys?
Good, brother. Good, thank you.
Yeah, so a little bit about how, you know, just a backstory for everybody to know why, you know, I got you guys on this podcast. It was basically because I had Juliana on the podcast. She was like episode 2. And basically we talked a lot about anxiety, depression, and especially men's mental health and things like that. And so basically what happened was I went through this podcast, I started talking, and like I believed a lot of the things that I said. However, I realized that I was talking about men's mental health with a woman, so that doesn't make it as easy. And then I was also talking about it without any experience and having somebody that has never actually been on, like gone through that sort of stuff. So I just got thinking, I started talking to Juliana, and I was just like, you know what, I really need to bring people on that have actually been through it and are doing something about it and seeing the positive out of all of that, everything that's going on. So that's sort of how I got you guys involved. And if possible, could you just like let me know a little bit about like Amend, this movement that you guys are a part of, and how you guys got a part of that?
Sure. First of all, bro, thank you for having us.
It's a pleasure.
Just acknowledge you for that. For myself, I've been with the men since the start. I think you have too, bro.
Yeah, bro.
And that sort of just came about through my own troubles. I was going through a rough patch, depression, all that sort of stuff, suicidal, heavily suicidal. And I sort of stumbled upon this, a workshop, actually, a walk that was back in New Zealand at the time. And then I was sort of at a point where I was like, oh, well, like I've got nothing to lose. The only way I can go from where I was at the time was up. So I thought, I'm just going to go do it, and I'll see what happens. And it was sort of that day. It was probably just over a year ago now. Was probably the day that my life changed forever. I feel like Amends now has obviously, it's saved my life, but it's changed my life obviously for the better. And that's probably it in a nutshell. But the biggest, I guess for me in terms of having depression, the biggest thing that rocked me out of everything in my life that I've been through, which is probably, we'll get to that story maybe later on, is the heaviest thing that rocked me were the 2 relationship breakdowns. And that's a common thing for especially men.
Look, I totally feel you on that one. Yeah. I went through mine, and it you know, it took me years to recover from that. Yeah. So I get you.
And that's such a big thing, especially in our circles. So and yeah, that's how I sort of stumbled upon Amend in a nutshell.
Right. Got it. And what does Amend do? Sorry. Just like, what is Amend about?
I guess we're just more so of a group that connect with people. We do workshops and many other things that just help give people the tools that they need in everyday life.
Is it specifically men, or is it also females?
It's men and females.
Right. Did it initially start just to be a men's thing, and then it grew to then start a female sort of thing?
Yeah, well, how it started was like, it was just a couple of the bros like sort of creating a space between, it was literally 2 of them, and they just thought like if we share how we're feeling with each other, why can't we do it with other people out there.
Yeah.
And it just started between two mates, and we thought, like, shit, why can't we bring outsiders in and create a space for them to talk about how they're feeling?
I love it. Like, look, I'd never heard of you guys, and I'd also heard a lot about like these men getaway trips and stuff like that. Like a friend of mine, he actually went on a, like, I think it was like a 7-week or 6-week getaway with like a bunch of boys, and they had a lot of issues that they were going through, and they seemed to have worked it out, and they came back and stronger men, and whatever they did, they got through it together and stuff. And that's sort of how I first started originally hearing about like these men's mental health and speaking and expressing on how you're feeling and things like that. And then, he brought it up from time to time, and I just never related to it. Also, growing up, I was a little younger, so I just didn't care as much when you're younger. And then as I got older, I just started to recognize that so many people were going through this, not only females, but also males. And then it just, the conversation got louder and louder as time has gone on. So now we're at a stage where obviously we're starting to really hear it. Probably there's so much more to go with this whole movement, but I definitely, I fully support what you guys are doing, and I think it's actually incredible. It's awesome. And like what I love so much personally, like, and anyone that wants to know my view on what I was thinking initially, you can just go back to listen to episode 2 of the podcast with Juliana. The last half an hour is basically that whole conversation. But just to go back to when I first went on your Instagram page, what I loved about it, it was all about men expressing. And like, I'm a full believer of like everyone, male, female, whatever, you should express as much as possible. And for men, it's natural or common that we don't express as well as women, right? Yeah. And so I love that. However, I'm very questionable on encouraging men to cry. I don't like the idea of encouraging men to cry. I think it's okay to cry. I say if you need to cry, you cry. But I'm not going to sit here and go, like, you're going through a tough time, man, you should cry about it. Like, you'll feel better. But I don't know. What do you think? Like, just give me a little thought on that.
We don't really, when men come into our space, it's not like if we go, bro, cry. It's going to fix it. No, we have different outlets of expressing those emotions coming out. It's hard to say that, men just really come to our workshops and our walks or in our community and really just let it out. They've bottled it up for a very long time and they don't know how to do it. Usually a lot of men just go for the physical violence, verbal violence. So we just help them, if they're going to let it out, they're going to let it out. How would you say, like in a
healthier? I think it's a healthier way to express it, because especially like as men, we are so taught from a young age, and like patterns are so deeply driven into us to. If we feel any sort of, I guess, emotion, it's you smash things up or you abuse people verbally. But I guess what we're trying to teach is there's other outlets to release those feelings and emotions, and it's not necessarily like we don't say cry. We're just like we allow them to feel whatever it is. Yeah. And if crying comes out, it might be yelling, it might be crying, it might it could be anything. Yeah. But I guess what we're saying is we've got a space for you to let it all out. If crying is part of it, that's beautiful.
Yeah. I love that. I think that's awesome. Do you mind just telling me a bit, one of you guys, about your story, like how you ended up so passionate about this?
Yeah, I could jump on there. Well, mine first started, obviously, my massive breakdown where I came to this was my relationship breakup. So I had a 8-9 year relationship. I obviously didn't know how to deal with my emotions. Always got taught that, it's weak if you
just
cry.
Closer to your mouth. Sorry, bro. Yeah, it's just cutting it.
Yeah. So if it's, it's always weak if you cry and da-da-da-da-da. So which led me down to a path. I had a pretty bad breakup, got really bad depression and anxiety and real bad suicide. Had like 3 serious attempts, ended up in mental hospital for 2 months. So, yeah, I just didn't know how to deal with it. And at the time, all I knew was I just wanted to be out. And it came to a time where, I started lying to my own family. And then, one day I just decided to, I didn't know where I was driving, but I ended up down in Byron. And, I ended up in the middle of the bush. And, I hung myself and I jumped. Moments later, I woke up with a dog barking in my face, and the police cut me down and found me. So that's why I take this so serious, because, I tapped out. I didn't want to be here. But for some strange reason, I just remember vividly just going, God, if you're real, do something. And I thought I was dead, to be honest. And then ever since then, like, I spent 2 months obviously in mental hospital, wondering why am I still here, still trying to take my own life, because I had obviously another serious attempt before that. And I was just like, the first thing was, well, that didn't work. What else is there? And, I didn't know who to talk to. I could never talk to my family, they'll just tell me, like, stop being stupid or something like that. I had no really close friends that I could just, vent to. And then, which pretty much stumbled on across the bro who, seen me at the gym, and, he asked me, how are you? After I got out of mental hospital, I, because I've always been heavily involved with gym and rugby and stuff like that. I seen him there, and he's just like, oh, hey bro, how are you? And I just, obviously had my mask up, and I was like, yeah, sweet bro. Went back to training. 15 minutes later, he's like, hey bro, how are you really? And it wasn't until then, like, it just dropped, and I just started crying in the middle of the gym floor. And I was like, bro, no good. Like, I literally just got out of mental hospital, man. Like, I don't know what to do. And then ever since then, like, he's given me the ways, like, taught me the ways, go to Sunrise and eating a lot cleaner, doing pretty much everything that we're doing with the Mend. And then, finding this group of guys that we just are so passionate, like, and hearing other stories and me sharing my story. I used to think that would have been weak, me sharing my story, but that's who I am, and that's who I, that's what's made me. And I guess for me, my purpose is I need to share that. I need to help other people going through their stuff, because I was the main one that never shared any thoughts, emotions, or feelings with anyone. So that's why I love this work that I do. I love who I am today. I can actually look at myself and be like, you know what, bro, I love you. Like, when that was like the worst thing. Like, if I was to say that, 3 years ago, I would have been, fuck, what a pussy.
Yeah, wow. Yeah, so it's interesting, man. That's
just a little story.
Of course. I'm sure it's such a small element of the whole story as well. Yeah. But if you don't mind me asking, were you depressed? Yeah. Like, was this like something that was brought on before or after your situation?
I guess at the time I was, unhappy with certain areas of my relationship that I didn't know how to deal with, and I didn't know how to express, because it was such a hard thing for me to do. I didn't know what to do. Like, I felt like I was just a punching bag in the relationship, and I was just copying everything. And I was just like, you know what? Every time I'd say something, someone would just be like, oh, it's all good. Like, you shouldn't think about that, or you shouldn't worry about that. So subconsciously, I didn't even know how I was feeling, but it was really eating away at me, and I didn't know how to express that. And the more that built up with me, I guess it just exploded. So looking back at it now, I probably was depressed even before I even knew.
Wow. That's so interesting. Like, cause like, I mentioned this on the other podcast, but I hold the word depression, anxiety, very heavy. You guys heard that. To me, it's just not something you just throw around, because when you hear stories like yours, and I'm sure we'll get to your story too, like, they have so much more meaning than just, I'm having a sad day. I'm sorry, buddy. Like, this sucked. It's a shitty day. I woke up and the sun wasn't out. Like, it's a shitty day, And, I've been having conversations with other people about, like, depression and, no one can really define it. Like, to be honest, it's very personal. Everyone feels it in a different way.
Yeah,
100%.
Sure.
Like it's I could explain to you how I think depression is, but someone could feel it so much more, and it's such a different way. So I find that very interesting, because then it's like, well, then you can't define depression.
Exactly. But then you go, like for me, I was going to all these like, doctors and all this, and all they would do is just, here's the antidepressants. This will fix you.
How do you feel about that?
At the start, I didn't understand. Like I was just like, why do I need a pill to make me happy? I was like, what's the difference between going out and getting fucked up? I was like,
Wow, that's interesting.
So I'm just like,
We don't endorse that, but that's very interesting point.
yeah. So for me, I was just like, at the time, I only took it just for my family's sake because of what I was putting them through. And to be honest, it did help at the time, but I've heard so many things that you're just going to get addicted to it. You're just going to numb your feelings. So, I found other ways to get rid of that. And I was just like, you know what? I don't need this pill to make me feel a certain way. And I think it's like BS that doctors have this thing that they just say, you're depressed or you've got anxiety, here's a pill to fix it.
Does it go away?
No, it doesn't go away.
I feel like all it does is just put a Band-Aid over it.
That's it.
It's not actually fixing the problem.
But do you feel like even through, doing a mend or doing other things that you could do in your life, do you feel like you'll ever move on from depression?
Yeah. I don't know if I feel like it's always going to be there, but I think what we become is we just create more more awareness around it, so that if it gets to a point, like say back in his journey where he was just so unaware of it, but it's starting to fester, we can sort of catch it early and know how to pivot from that.
Yeah.
I guess that's probably the best way I can describe it anyway.
Do you feel like it's something that you would need to see someone like therapist or being part of an amend movement kind of thing? Like, because you could almost look at it as amend movement as like therapy in a way.
Yeah,
so you could be going to a therapist and paying $200 an hour for that time, or you could be going to amend, but it could be doing the exact same thing. Because I'm assuming that amend is there to give you the tools as well as be there as a support group, but it's to give you the tools so that when you do start to get through, like you were talking about, when you start to feel it fester and everything like that, you know what tools to use for you to get through it and move past it and carry on with your life. Is that right?
Well, that's actually pretty accurate. I think they're pretty spot on with that.
Oh, good. Yeah. Well, I learned that from you just talking just then.
That was actually really good.
Could you share with me a little bit about your tell me more about like your struggle with the 2 relationships, and why was it 2? Because like I find that very interesting. Like I thought it would be 1, but it happened twice. So in a way, there's almost a pattern.
Yeah, 100% there's a pattern, because and we always say what we don't change, we're choosing. So like, obviously, because I kept finding myself, because I wasn't changing, I kept finding myself in those same relationships, and it was just a pattern that was going round and round in circles. It might have even been more than 2 relationships. There's the 2 that I can recall.
Right. So what happened? Like, did you feel like you had depression before, and then what happened that sort of triggered all these horrible things? And then what, if you're happy to share,
the depression probably played into my story growing up. I grew up back in New Zealand, obviously, with around a dad that's heavily involved in bike gangs, motorcycle gangs back in New Zealand, still is. And he raised me and my 3 older sisters. I'm the youngest of 4. And when I was my mum was never really around. She was heavy alcoholic, used to beat up my sisters and all that stuff, sexually abused and all that sort of stuff like that. And then when I was about 11 or 12, my sister's close to me in age committed suicide. And she was about 6 years older than me. And for me, I can remember like that was a turning point in my life where I was like, fuck, like, because when my dad came and woke me up and told me about it, I was just like, oh yeah, cool. And I was like, what do you mean, yeah, cool? Your sister just I don't even mourn or anything. And then I sort of just carried that through life, because growing up around my dad, like the big tough guy, it was never said to me, but like my impression was don't fucking cry. Like, you got to be a hard fella for the family. I was like, okay, sweet. So I never showed my emotions, never did any of that growing up. And I just bottled that up probably literally until I was about 29, 30, which is last year, a couple of years ago, and it all just blew up in my face. And then my mother passed away, and I just kept holding on to that because my mum was never around. I had resentment towards women, which sort of played out in my relationships.
Wow.
And that's something I can only see now, but obviously at the time I didn't know. Like just because the awareness is there now, I can create those sort of and see the patterns that I was in, where I was like having resentment towards women because I just didn't. I had a feeling that if a woman was going to come into my life, she was going to leave me anyway. Because my mum, that's what my mum did. So it's like that's the pattern that I found myself in, and then it got to the point where I was investing so much of myself in these other people, and then when they left me, I was like, fuck, what? I've got nothing. Like,
Right. Yeah.
what am I without these people? Like I was putting so much of myself in these people that when they were gone, I didn't know who I was. And I was like, I might as well not be here. I don't have an identity almost, if that makes sense. Yeah. That's probably the easiest way I could put it.
So that sort of trauma, I guess you could call it, from your childhood growing up, it sort of dragged on to your adulthood, but was sort of masked, I guess, under
masked.
layers and layers and layers and layers of all of this stuff. But then what do you think triggered it all to come out and really cause you like a lot of pain later in life? Because I'm sure there was a period, like even though you were pissed and you were like feeling horrible, I'm sure, but you got through it. What changed?
I don't even feel like I got through it. I feel like I was just dragging my ass through life.
Wow.
And it was just, I was angry at the world. Like I felt like the world owed me something.
Wow.
And I was always like, why does this shit keep happening to me? Like, and it was always like, poor me, that victim mentality. Or just like, why does this keep happening to me? And then it got to the point where I think it was my recent separation at the time before I started this journey, which was a couple of years ago. Just same thing again. I put so much into myself into that person, and then when they were gone, I was like, who am I? And then that was when I got heavily suicidal. And then my sister actually found me. My older sister that I was living with at the time actually found me as I was about to kill myself, and then she was like, "Nah, you're not like." You need to do something. And I think she actually told my dad. That's what actually might have been the trigger. And he was back home and he rang me and he was like, fucking get your ass home now. And I was like, yeah. So I was like, okay. He was like, I'll book you a flight home tomorrow. Get your ass home. I was like, fuck, you're righto. I didn't even argue, right? I went home and then it was just universe, I guess you could say. I was home and then there was a workshop in New Zealand the same day. That weekend. I got home on a Tuesday and the workshop was on a Saturday. It was a couple of hours from where I was living back in New Zealand, and I was like, Dad, I want to do this. And he was like, fuck, if you want to do it, I'll take you. So he took me, and then the rest is history.
Wow.
Yeah.
So then when you got part of these relationships, were the relationships toxic that caused you so much pain later, or was it the breakup of just love?
Yeah, I would say a bit of both. I wouldn't say it was necessarily toxic. I definitely played my part in it, and that's obviously only because I can see that now. But at the time, just those bad behaviors, like just abusive, like not physically,
Oh, okay.
not physically, just more like mentally, emotionally, and controlling. Just a real piece of shit. Can I say that?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Swear as much as you want. This is the great unloading. We unload it all, baby.
just a real controlling. Piece of shit is the nicest way, probably the easiest way I could put it.
Yeah,
and I just didn't.
You look like a piece of shit.
Yeah, thank you. And because I didn't know who I was. I didn't like who I was. Yeah. So I would just put that on everybody else. I didn't like who I was, so I'd just make project my shit onto everybody else because I felt shit about myself, so I'd make you feel shit about yourself to make me feel better, like the poor man's version of self-worth, you know what I mean?
Hurt people,
that's it. Hurt people. So by making somebody else wrong, it was just like the poor man's version of self-worth. Like I was just like, fuck, I feel better. But you know what I mean?
And do you and then when you got into that second relationship, was it the same pattern that you were feeling?
Exactly the same. And that pattern just kept, and now that I look back on it now, it was just pattern after pattern, same relationship, same cycle, and it was just going over and over again.
Can I ask how long you both have been on this journey with Amend and really working on yourselves?
Probably since the start. How long?
How's it been going? Shit, I don't know.
Jeez. I thought a year, over a year and a half.
Really?
Be over a year.
Year and a bit. You know what I mean?
That's a lot less than I thought.
Yeah, bro.
You guys
bro. It's pretty fresh.
like
Wow.
I know for both of us, like when the only way we could go was up. So it was like, if I'm going to jump into this, I'm going to go like full tit into it.
Yeah.
Awesome. I love that.
Like, I'm not going to just like do a little bit here and there.
Love that.
Like I've got
100 or nothing.
Yeah, bro,
That's it.
100%. And I've got like friends that jumped on the journey at the same time as me, and they've like just fallen off. Like they're just fallen off, fall back on. Like they're still doing the same sort of things that they were doing before we jumped on it. But and I've just sort of just stayed true and just been like, nah.
Yeah.
Like this is what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And it's cool, bro, because it's like now my family started to jump into it. Like,
Oh, that's beautiful.
because when I started it, my older sister that I was in with at the time, she was like, oh, I'm struggling a little bit now too. She was like, what do you think I should do? I was like, oh, come try this amend program. She was like, what do you think's wrong with me? I was like,
Yeah.
I'm not saying
Yeah,
anything's
that's
wrong with
actually
you.
a really good point. Yeah,
She was like,
yeah.
She was like, what do you think? I was like, I'm not saying anything's wrong. Just give it a go. You don't know. And she just hasn't turned back.
Yeah, now she's killing it, eh,
Oh,
bro?
she's like the queen of
No
she's like,
way.
yeah,
Wow, isn't that amazing? It's always,
she's like the boss.
do you know what I find? It's always those people that are just so heavily against it or questionable about it that are become the biggest advocates because it and when you see that, you just can tell it really changed someone's life.
Yeah.
Like, and that's a pretty damn cool feeling and thing to watch and witness.
Yeah.
That, and it's crazy. It's your sister. I think that's, and it must be really like nice for you to just have that, knowing that your family is starting to.
Bro, it's beautiful. And I remember when, it wasn't that long ago when we sort of all realized, we're like, fuck, she's going to be like the big, like top dog of a man, like in terms of woman. And one of the boys was like, bro, you did this. And I was like, eh? And he sent me a message. He was like, just let this land for you, bro. And he was like, because you chose to step into this space, your sister, your brother-in-law, your nieces and nephews, and now your other brother-in-laws are starting to step into the space because of you. And I was like, fuck. And I just sat with it, bro, and it hit me, and I just started crying.
Wow.
And just to clear up, I've never been much of a crier.
Yeah. What are you, stop crying, man. Stop being a bitch.
I never cried at all in my, like when I was in my young adult, like literally, I probably cried.
You're probably making up for lost time, to be fair. You
100%.
probably needed a little bit of crying when you were
100%.
growing up and you didn't.
Yeah.
And then now you're just making up. So I'll give it to you. You know?
Thanks, bro. Thanks. It means a lot.
Yeah, dude. It's actually quite funny. I just got to mention this. I'm totally joking, but I was thinking about. I was like, should I just get a box of tissues that just and put it on the table? Here you guys go. And then like midway through, fuck it, you don't need it.
You don't need it.
Yeah, that's so interesting. So can I ask you? Like, I thought of this while I was on the drive here, and I thought it was a really good question because I actually don't know the answer to it myself, and you guys might not know either. I feel like I'm sort of figuring that out. But what does it mean to be a man? What is a man?
That's a good question.
That is a main question. I like that.
Like, what does it mean to be a man?
I really like that question.
You can use it in amend. It's copyright.
Yeah.
Trademark.
Shout out.
What I believe a man should be is a man that is willing to communicate, show, express his thoughts, emotions, and feelings without any judgment on himself or others. In a nutshell.
Yeah, because obviously there's so much to it.
Yeah, 100%.
I think it's like part of me thinks it's very individual. Obviously, there's foundations that are required because I think, there's a sense of responsibility that comes with being a man, just like there is a sense of responsibility that there is to be a woman. Yeah. Look, I'm stumped. I'm going to ask a lot of people this one because I'm going to think about it a lot because I think it's interesting.
That's different for everybody though, right? Like you could ask somebody else and they'd be like, oh, that could be old. It's going to be like the man's supposed to be the provider.
That's right.
You go out and work hard, you bring home the money, but it's like, nah, fuck that. What? Like that's what society's told us a man should do.
Yeah.
For us, and like he hit the nail on the head perfectly. I would agree with everything that he said.
Yeah.
Like a man is someone that can stand in their power, express to you how they're feeling with no judgment.
Yeah. So head held high with vulnerability.
Yeah.
I like it.
They should, like self-love, I reckon, is like the number one thing. because if you got self-love, like, fuck,
Yeah, that's
I'm
the
the
game.
man.
That's
Yeah.
the game changer. Self-love.
Yeah.
I feel like that's
Massive. Yeah.
That's the one
And
thing
I
we
like,
just-
it also, sometimes it's out of your control, like your situation. Do you know what I mean? Like, how can you have self-love when your dad is,
Yeah.
telling you to toughen up
Yeah.
and you're not good enough, or, your mum's not there, and like all, and like, all these situations, it's like, it's not completely your fault. But I do believe that you get to a certain age that you just can't blame your parents anymore.
Oh, 100%.
You have, like, you become an adult, you get through it. Like my mom, right? She's an amazing, amazing woman. Like I love her. And like, I know, everyone would feel, some sort of feeling towards their mother. But my mom had a schizophrenia mom, right? Her whole life. And she basically raised herself. And her dad was an alcoholic, right? And used to take him to the pub. And that's when women weren't allowed in the pub.
Yeah.
And they used to sit in the car and
sisters, yeah.
and he would go get pissed and he would start fights with his own brothers and they'd end up bleeding and everything and come home and that sort of thing. And at the same time, my grandmother, which is my mum's mum, had schizophrenia, and she actually went to a mental illness. What do they call it? Mental
health ward.
And she ended up getting electric shock treatment.
Oh shit!
Most
wow.
of
That's
her
still
life.
around. Is that still a thing?
Well, this was a long time ago.
sorry.
Yeah, this is like in the maybe 50s, 60s.
Yeah, right.
So she went through electric shock treatment,
Wow.
and it changed her completely, obviously, and
well, it
didn't
would, yeah.
make it any better.
Yeah.
It was a horrible thing, but she went through all of this, and she is the most positive, uplifting person I know, and you just almost don't even see any of that affect her. And I asked her once, and I was just like, look, so many people that I know in my generation, they're all so affected by their parents. Like they feel so affected by their parents. Like you went through some crazy stuff and they were poor, like, so it was like a horrible mix of, upbringing. Like, and she just said, life is long. You got to get over it. You got to move on and you got to work through it. And if you're not going to work through it, well, that's where the issue is.
That's the key there. Like, I noticed you said get over it, and then you said work through it. Like,
Yeah.
two
Sorry,
different
I can be
things.
very conflicting.
Like, and that's
Thank you.
That's that old school mentality, right? To just get over it. But it's like, well, no. If you work through it, that is like the way to healing is feeling, right? So if we feel our way through those things, those experiences, that's the only real way to get over it. And like I still feel through things right now, like in terms of my mum. Like it was I think it was last week, I was like in tears just because something came up around my mother. I was like, fuck, like I thought I dealt with it. But it was like, oh, I went out to the bush and just sat by myself and just wrote, just like, oh shit, I didn't even realize this was a thing. And it was just shit that was coming up that I'd forgotten about, that I just buried. And I was like, okay, this is supposed to be happening, so I'm just going to allow it and just allow myself to feel my way through it. It took hours, but it's like you have to feel your way through those experiences in order to, I guess, actually move on.
I love that.
Yeah,
I think that's amazing.
yeah,
You can't heal what you don't reveal.
yeah.
Otherwise, it's just suppressed.
That should just keep showing up in your
Do you feel
relationships.
scarred, like, from, because obviously it was sort of triggered by relationships for the both of you. Do you feel scarred from these relationships?
No. I feel like I'm in control of that now. I mean, it's still like we said earlier, it's awareness, right? Like to know, and it's about breaking that pattern that we were obviously both finding ourselves in terms of.
How do you think you both, like, with all the stuff that was going through, your minds at the time, like you had depression, I don't know, we haven't touched on anxiety yet, but you guys had depression and you were going through hardship. Like, how did you cope with that, as well as this breakup that supposedly a person you were really in love with, right? And how are you not scarred? Like, how does that not affect, like you sort of mentioned it a little earlier, you sort of went into it like, well, this is how the relationships are going to be, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like, I just don't know how you come out of it and not be affected, unless you're figuring something out that I haven't figured out, but it's that letting it go.
100% letting it go. And it's also like when that, there's a chance that it's going to show up again, but it's like knowing that it's when it does start to show up, like like I see you, like I know what you're doing here, and it's like no, I'm going to go the other way. Like
I feel you on that one because I've learned so much from like I had a bad breakup and it was actually the worst time of my life. Like my buddy Mitch was he was there through it all and he just heard me on and on for years, right? And I just couldn't emotionally detach because I'm a very emotional guy. I'm very in touch with my own emotions. Like I'm very outspoken about it as well. Like I'm no shame to mention it or talk about it. But it was like I just couldn't let it go because how I felt, I really believed. So like when I love someone, I really, really mean it. I don't say it as like but I don't think most people actually think like that. I think it's a minority that do because I seem to be the only one that got so affected and a few like others that did, but majority seem to move on pretty well.
Yeah.
Like, what do you think of that?
Yeah, majority, do they actually move on? Do they actually move on well though? That's like, I feel like they don't. Like, I feel like most people just, and that seems to be a common pattern these days as well, is like they'll just get out of a relationship and then they'll just go bury themselves in another one.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, if you didn't deal with what happened here, that shit's going to show up in that relationship anyway.
Yeah.
Might not be in the same form, but it's definitely going to show up. And it's just like I said, you've just got to work your way through that and realize, okay, both accept your part in that relationship. Like, why did it break up? What was my part in it? What was her part in it? Okay, cool. How can I be better and work forward from there?
Do you ever go back?
In terms, what do you mean?
Do you go back and fix those
behaviors?
problems?
Oh yeah, 100%.
With the same partner?
Well, I didn't, so no.
I look back and at the time, I reckon I could have gone back. But looking now, we were not ever meant to be. Like actually, at the time, I thought, and I really could have fixed it. I personally could have fixed my problems. Right,
that's that men mentality, right? Like I can, like Mr. Fix.
Yeah,
like
yeah. But then she had her own issues that I couldn't fix, and it wasn't my responsibility to fix.
Exactly.
And then that's where I realized now that because she had her issues, that it wasn't my responsibility, and I couldn't fix it. That's where I needed to walk away. And that's sort of, it took me years to figure that out.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Years.
That's beautiful.
So even though I could fix myself and even if I take the time to fix myself, if they haven't done the same or they're not wanting to, or maybe they don't see a problem, well, I got to just completely move on from that because then they're not interested to change who they are or the way they do change this, who they are is actually in a negative way, even worse.
Actually, yeah, I'm a big believer in that of the whole, like if this relationship is not working and like you said, you're willing to fix it or yourself anyway, then that's fine for you to step away and do that. And if they want to, I guess, join you on that journey, they'll find you again. Like there's no force. It's just like a matter of flowing, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So if she was willing to work on herself, I feel like you might have met somewhere down the line, maybe. But it's also being at peace with maybe we won't.
Yeah.
And being okay with that.
Yeah. It's very interesting. Like I can definitely tell the difference between, like somebody that really is meant to be. Like I'll give you an example, right? One of my best mates, Mitch, he had a partner since he was like 16, or 15 they sort of met, and she was like 14 or something like that. So they were together for a very long time, and they went through, breakups, got back together, break up, got back together, break up, got back together. But through all those years of all of that, we all underlyingly knew they were perfect for each other, regardless of the breakup. They were just sort of growing up, and they were just, I don't know, you're young, you make stupid mistakes and you say stupid shit and then you make rash decisions and you break up and then you get back together. But you could sense they were still aligned. Does that make sense?
Yeah, 100%.
But then when there's other people that you see and you see the same patterns and you're like, you're not aligned. Like,
it's not going to work.
And I'm so conscious of this because I want to be aware of where I fall in that line if that happens, because I could have easily fell in that line with my X that like, you know, tormented me in terms of my mind and emotion. But in the end of the day, we were never aligned
Yeah.
at all.
Yeah.
So you got to be so careful and be so aware of who aligns with you and who doesn't. That's sort of what I've grown out of, you know, this experience of a breakup.
Yeah, I agree with that. That's actually pretty spot on.
I'm glad.
And it's also like, especially those in terms of like the couples that stay together so young, and it's like that's all they know. And it's like,
I don't know, because they do experience other things when they are broken up.
yeah, but when you're that young, do you really break up? Like,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's a good point.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
like, it's like, oh, and then it's like next day, oh, you're like, you know.
Yeah. I get you. Yeah.
So yeah, it's like I guess I don't really have much to say on that. I think that's beautiful.
What do you think, Cayden?
No, exactly the same. Exactly the same.
Good. Can I ask you guys anxiety? Do you guys have anxiety?
Not anymore.
I never really feel like I had yeah. I don't feel like it's something, because I feel like that's a future sort of future-based emotion, and I'm not really. There were times
Future-based emotion. What do you mean?
well, like depression's past,
Anxiety
anxiety's
is
future. So
about
like
the
you're
future,
worried
yeah.
about something that might or might not happen.
Wow. I never looked at it like that ever.
I thought everyone did.
Really?
Yeah.
You guys? Yeah. Oh, fuck. It's just me. Fuck.
So,
That's why I do this, so I can fucking learn. Anyway. That's
And I've
interesting.
I guess. Oh, actually, I probably might have before I started my journey, but now I'm very much in like that flow state where I'm just like,
Talk to me about this flow state.
whatever happens,
I've
gonna happen.
seen you say it a few times. I've
I
heard
love
you
it, eh?
say it. I've seen your
and
Instagram a little
It
bit.
does annoy a few people because they're like, "Why are you so fucking chill?" I'm like, "Bro, I'm just allowing what's going to happen."
yeah.
Like, there's no force.
How do you do that?
By just being.
Yeah, but some people just can't be, apparently.
Be in the present moment.
But what are you trusting in?
Universe.
Yeah.
The universe.
Or whatever.
God, source, whatever you
yeah.
want to call it.
Yeah.
God, source. I mean, Cayden's
I'm Christian, so
he's Christian, yeah.
call it God. So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fair enough. So it's got to be a higher thing than yourself.
Higher
to
power.
let go.
Yeah, I guess you could say. Yeah.
So what about if you don't believe in anything, but you have this flow? Is that possible too?
As
So,
in-
yeah, I'm not saying I can't. Well, I won't say it's not. There's
Yeah.
probably people out there that. I mean, I feel like people that do just flow. Like they believe in something because it's energy, right? Like you're just. Yeah, that's sort of hard. That's the best way I feel like I can explain it.
Fair enough. And so why do you like to all right. What I'm
Yeah, so
trying
why I
to,
like to flow, eh?
I'm trying to get to the point of you talk about flow so much, but it's all good to just say, the flow. I can say it all the time. It's flowing. Yeah, I feel flow, you know. But what is it like? What does it mean other than just like I let go? And like if that's all it is, well then okay, I understand. But I thought it was something a little bit more than just no worries. It's all good.
I guess for me, anyway, in my experience is because I spent so much of my life trying to force things, and that's that, like, you know, and again, that's that, well, probably from my father. It's like, no, you get something, you fucking make it happen. You just force it, and like you make sure it happens, and then it's like, well, now I'm sort of at that place where I'll just like surrender and allow what I truly believe, like everything that's going to happen for me is like I'm just like, I'm sweet, I'll be here, and whatever's going to happen is going to happen for me. I feel like sounds a bit weird, but I feel like it's already happened. Does that make sense?
So is that the there's a scientific way of putting this. Do you know what I'm talking about? Yeah, it's sort of like osmosis, but I'm thinking Charlie
Be
Rocket.
easy with those words. I don't go to school, man.
Yeah. You know what I'm talking
Are you
about?
saying, like, are you trying to ask if he believes in free will
No.
and just believes that everything
Maybe it's been
already
written
happened?
out for you.
It's like it's already happened. Is that right? Right? Like
Yeah, like, and I guess.
is
yeah,
that
like,
what-
I'm at-
like I can't remember what the actual scientific way.
I don't
I'll look
know.
it up.
I don't know science anymore, but I genuinely feel like I'm at peace with whatever. Like I feel like I'll react to chaos or something great happening in my life the same way.
Like a prophecy? You mean prophecy? Is that what you mean?
Nah.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean though? Like,
Yeah.
I feel
Look,
like,
I'll think about it.
yeah,
but
I feel like for me, that's what flow is being able to respond to a bad situation or a good situation the same way and being okay with whatever that might be.
Yeah.
Like,
I sum that up as having no expectation on anything.
I like that.
You know, so you know.
Yeah, because then no expectation. You're
always
ready for.
gonna-
You're
yeah,
always ready
always
for whatever
gonna be, yeah.
happens,
So
but you
it's
have
like, you know what?
no
Just let it be.
disappointment.
This happens, sweet. How am I going to deal with it? How am I going to work through this? You know, rather than it's just going to consume me. Like, oh,
Yeah.
fuck.
So you mentioned you had a bit of anxiety before. Is that right?
Yep.
What does that feel like? And can you get past it in terms of like not have it anymore?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like how it looked for me, like I was always, you know, like skeptical about everything. Anywhere I went, I'd be like, oh shit, like just worried, like the worst for everything.
Does it feel like you feel disabled, like you can't function?
Yeah, I mean, like I had a panic attack and I didn't know what it was, and like literally, like my heart was just racing and I was just heavy breathing and I thought I was going to pass out and I was just shaking and I was like, I didn't know what I was going to do. Like my hands were sweating. It was a very like, it came on subtly, like it came out of nowhere and then just crept up and then I was just like shaking and like didn't know what to do. Like I thought like
So when
my body was shutting down
when
or
it gets
something.
brought on, do you think there are people out there that do just call it anxiety? But
I knew you were going to go, yeah, I was waiting for this.
I was waiting for that too, yeah.
I don't know. I think a lot of people cry anxiety. They put it in their head. They start to feel all anxious only because they're saying and thinking they are, but I don't know if actually they are. I feel like they're just they want to be. So they're saying to themselves, I'm feeling this.
No, it's like, I guess that's just the power of words, right? Like,
Because your mind's powerful, right? It
100%,
can
and
control
we
your
can
body.
we tell ourselves something enough, we're going to eventually
Believe
believe it and then be that. So like, I feel like if people are, shit, it's anxiety again, and it just keeps playing over. I can't even relate to that.
But then it is also hard because I do believe that there are people that do have like anxiety and they really can't control it. Like it's just out. It's a how they were born. It was their body just functions like that, and it's out of their control. But there is a sense of also you can control it with your mind for some other people. So that's why like I'm just wary of this because. Do you think it's okay for us to be so okay with anxiety and depression? Like what I mean by that is not that people that do have it, that we say you shouldn't say anything or you shouldn't have it or anything like that. But do you think it's okay for it to be used so often and almost like people can just say, oh, I feel really depressed.
It's just like a cop out sort of say.
Yeah. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, I just feel like we're taking away the real meaning of it and the power of it. And then because it's almost like people crying wolf.
Yeah. Well, I reckon you can see past the bullshit. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, it all comes out and then you can see right through it. That's
I like
what I
that.
believe in.
Yeah.
Because it's just like, are you really? Like, tell me 5 good things about your life or,
Yeah. Yeah.
and they'll be able to rattle off and, it's just like people will just say it for just attention. Like,
Yeah.
there's been a lot around that I've seen lately, to be honest, about people.
Yeah, I definitely feel like, I don't know if that's because we're in this space now and it's like we're more aware of it, but there's probably some things out there that it's like the cool thing to do. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. I agree.
You're happy I said that, aren't you? Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's like,
Look, I'm just setting it up. You're putting it in.
but also like in terms of people throwing it out there, it's like, my mentality is like, who am I to judge? Like, they could be going through something that I don't know about. So I'm not going to be like, shut up or whatever, whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and that's actually a great point because
Yeah.
I thought about it as well. And do you know what? Every single person that's ever told me they have anxiety or depression, never once in my mind have I actually questioned whether they really did or not.
Yeah.
I always believed them and I always trusted. It was only until later when I started to get to know them a little bit better, and then I started to go, "You're full of shit.
Yeah.
Like, fuck off."
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah. I that's all I could really say on it is and I guess that's from me coming from that space of being like, this is how I'm like, I've got depression, rah. But it's like, because I've been on that space and now I'm on the other side and I can see it. I'm like, okay, but what if you actually do? Wonder what they're actually going through that's causing them this pain. I'm not going to judge them on that. That's their experience and that's their experience.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
So moving forward, the future for you guys, like, do you guys have kids?
No.
No.
Relationships?
No.
Yep, I'm in a relationship.
You're in a relationship. How long you guys?
Just over a year now.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So moving on in the future, like you're going to have, maybe you'll have a wife one day or a boyfriend or kids.
Hey, uncle.
Let's not go there.
You're telling me something I don't know.
up to?
Cheeky fellow, eh?
So yeah, sorry, back to it. So in the future, one day you may have a wife, a boyfriend, a girlfriend, whatever, or you might never get married or whatever, but you might, have a child. You might have a little Cayden and a little Jason or a Mrs. Like a girl version. What's a J and Kate, Kaylee, Cayden, I don't know, whatever girl name we can come up with. But you have one of those little running little things,
Yep.
What's the future with that? Like in terms of like, how are you going to change from what you guys have been through? And do you think what you have in terms of like depression and anxiety, do you think this will pass on to your children?
No, no way. I know that, one day when I'll be a father, my communication is going to be very clear with them. I think that's probably the biggest thing that I could take away, from what I didn't have when I was younger is the communication, because it was always, if I said something, I'd just get a hiding or something like that. So never really spoke out much. So 100% I'll just, implement the conversations as they're growing up, even when they're learning, explain to them why they can't do things or, not really no. Instead of no, just, how can we do something that we can do it rather than no.
So you don't think your depression, your anxiety will mentally pass on?
No.
I feel like that's an energy thing, right?
Yeah.
Like I feel like for me anyway, like because that's an energy that I was raised in. That's the sort of, I guess that's the energy that I sort of took on. And if like, even with my nieces and nephews now, they're young, like 3 and 5. Like I've caught myself a few times, like when they're crying, like shut up, like stop crying, you silk, like stuff like that. I'm like shit.
Nah, joking.
And I'm like shit, like that's not right. Like now I'm like, nah, I've got to like.
But isn't it right?
Eh?
Is it always not right
What do you mean?
to tell your little niece and nephew to shut the fuck up, stop crying?
Oh, if we want to breed like more people like how we were raised, yeah. But it's like, but what we're doing there is already suppressing how they're feeling, and then we're just going to shut.
But do you think there's a time and a place for it as well? Like I what I mean by that is that I feel like there are times where you need to instill into your child that they do need to get on with it, get over it, and move forward, and not just sometimes for themselves, but for others.
How are they going to know that though?
Well, that's what you're supposed to know that because you're mentoring that, right? You're guiding a kid. But
yeah,
like I'll give you an example, right?
Your sister's kid?
Yes.
Yes.
So, you can go back to the other podcast to listen to that. But, just for an example of that, like sometimes kids can be a little bit more emotional and they don't know how to handle their emotion as well. That's why they scream and kick and cry because they're just learning on how to express their emotion in a way. Because there's an appropriate way and there is an appropriate way sometimes. And like I feel like when it comes to certain situations, such as like a sporting team, you just got to get on with it. As hard as it is, sometimes you just got to suck it up. You just got to do what you got to do, and then after we can talk about it. But just got to get on with it. I don't know. It's just my thought.
Yeah, that's your view, and that's not right or wrong, but that's your
right.
view. Like, for me, like as you were speaking to the kids, like kids are so happy when they're so young, right? And like we don't actually. I feel like happiness is like our birthright, but it's like we don't teach kids to be unhappy. They learn that. Like, so if you look at every little baby, they're so fucking over the moon. They're so happy, but what we actually teach them is how to be the opposite of that. Like through schools, parenting, whatever the case may be for them, their programming and what they've picked up is about how to be unhappy, depressed, whatever that is in schools. So, for example,
I'm a little worried. Sorry, I'll just go on a side topic here. This is actually like a lot of people don't agree with me with this one, but I'm just going to throw it out there because I'm curious to your thoughts. Okay, and it's all right. I'm all right with it because a lot of people disagree with it. Yeah. But in my view, you can't achieve happiness. Happiness is an emotion. It's just like sadness. It comes and it goes. So even though you become happy, it doesn't mean that's it. You've achieved it. You're happy. That's it. Like it's just an emotion. So I feel like the wrong term to use is happy, and it should be more, peace. Because you can be, sorry, you can feel sad, but have peace in your life. You can feel happy and have peace in your life. You can feel angry, but have peace in maybe. It's a bit of a contradiction, that angry one. So I got to think about that one. That's a new one I've thought about.
I was going to pull you up on that. But
yeah. No, thank you. Yeah, I'll think about that a little bit more. But do you know what I mean? Like, can you, like, why are we saying, we got to be happy? We got to, get ourselves happy when it's just an emotion. It comes and it goes.
I feel like if you're driving to make yourself happy, you're never going to be satisfied. You know what I mean?
So if you're trying to be happy, you're never going to be happy.
Because I feel like there's no real end goal there. It's just like there's no real final destination. It's just like you're just going to keep going.
So what should you be striving for?
Well, that's obviously what we're striving for is happiness, right? But you don't really get there and be like, this is what it is. Right. Like you're always going to strive.
So it's a constant pursuit of happiness. Pursuit of happiness.
There you go.
Good.
Well played.
Good fucking movie, by the way. Anyone watch it?
Yeah, a long time ago.
I like that. Pursuit of happiness. See, maybe we should be saying that. Instead of let's all, go get happy, let's pursue to be happy.
I like that.
For me, it's not about being happy. I love love. So
ooh, I like it, my friend.
Love is always a big thing for me. So
that is good.
Yeah,
interesting.
I'd rather seek love, like love within myself, love with everything, because I do love everything.
Oh yeah. If you might have already picked it up already, but this fella, he's not a man of many words, but like he is the embodiment of love, Cayden. Like he doesn't say much, but when he does, you're like, oh yeah, like.
Hey, bro.
And you just been.
I love you.
So, bro, we're already taken there. On my way.
But it's like, and like that's how he's known in all of our spaces. It's like if you look at Cayden, you're like that fella is like the embodiment of like true love.
So should we be chasing love then?
Yeah,
I like that.
It feels like whatever
love
works for you, right?
Yeah, that's very interesting.
Maybe chasing self love.
Ooh, I like this. You can chase self-love. You can love others. Love is a good one.
I love everything. Love everyone. Everyone I meet.
How much can you love someone if you don't first love yourself?
Exactly.
Ooh, I like that. Fuck, bangers out today.
You can't. What is it? You can't.
You cannot give what you do not have.
There you go.
Ooh.
So it's like, and that's what one thing we always say now, especially at our workshops. It's like, people are like, I love this, I love that, but it's like, do you actually like a question I would always ask is like, how much love are you actually giving if you don't have that for yourself? So you're almost limiting your.
You can't
yourself.
give what you don't have.
Yeah.
So how do you get it?
To get love, self-love?
I
For me,
personally
it's discipline. Like I find the biggest thing for me and my self-love is discipline. Like getting up early in the morning, cold shower, meditation, gym. Like discipline for me is a form of self-love. That's just for me anyway. Like I feel like if my discipline's on, I'm vibing. Like my self-love is through the roof. But that's just for me anyway. It looks completely different for everybody else.
Where did you get this epiphany with love? Like, is this a new thing for you? Because obviously you're going through everything that you were going through, like that depression, suicidal, and all these sort of things. Did all this self-love only come later? Or did you have the self-love before?
No, I didn't have it before. I guess once I went through my struggles and my darkest times, I look at life that, I'm like, I'm blessed. I couldn't have been here on this podcast right now. I look every day like it's raining, but I love it. I would much rather this than what I've been through. I chose to cop out. So everything for me is just, I'm grateful to be here, to be in any space or to meet anyone or to learn new things. So for me, that's my love to everything.
Yeah, yeah. And I guess also it's coming from the other side of that, which is like hating everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like that old saying, right? Like without
Well, I heard a really
without
good one,
darkness, there's no light. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it's like,
I heard something that I thought was really good. When people are very hateful, it's actually a reflection on how they're feeling.
and that was me, bro. That was me.
Wow. Yeah.
I hated
That's
everyone.
what I said earlier, right? Like I hated how I felt about myself, so I make everybody else feel shit.
Wow. That's
But now,
so interesting.
now because of the love I have for myself, I feel like I allow people to be who they truly are when they're around me.
Can you help someone find love for themselves?
100%.
Yeah, 100%.
Easy. Not easy,
Easy?
but yeah.
There are ways.
There
Oh,
are.
there's ways.
Right.
It's always within.
And does Amend help with that?
Yep.
Yeah.
Is Amend like a forever brotherhood or sisterhood that you just, once you're a part of and you start this journey, it's just like a lifelong, forever thing?
Once you're in, you're part of the family.
Yeah.
So it's just a big community. Like there's thousands of us now.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's incredible. I actually have, I sort of went back to the beginning when I was doing a bit of research on you guys, and like from where you were to where you guys are now, it's actually incredible. And, I actually even love the name Amend. Like, I think that's just, I couldn't picture a better word that just is perfect for it. It wasn't like, it wasn't focusing on the negative.
Yeah.
But it was also acknowledging what it is.
Yeah.
That there is issues, but we're gonna do something about it physically, but we're also going to, get past it and move on. I think it was just a beautiful word or a beautiful name.
Thank you, bro.
Yeah.
The hard thing was, I guess, like you said at the start, was when we first started, it was like it's just men. And
Yeah.
we're like, well, it's not just men that are hurting. Like, why
Yeah.
can't we open this up to women and families?
Yeah.
And then
Wow, families, that's awesome. I think that's really
because
cool.
it filters through the families, right? Through the mothers and through the men. So we're like, why can't we? And I'll never forget our first women's event. It was so daunting.
And those women.
Yeah, oh, bro, it was
Different energy. And
yeah.
it was, it's painful.
I feel so blessed that like I have been fortunate enough in my life that I've never felt the pain that you guys have felt. I've never felt depressed. Like I felt sad, like real sad. Like really sad. I need that tissue. I felt sad, but I don't know. I just never felt depressed, and I never have felt anxiety. I've brought upon anxiety on myself deliberately.
Do you feel like you're trying to control the situation, like an outcome?
Yes.
There you go.
Yes. Wow.
Just
Very good.
Just relax, brother. Just
Yes.
relax.
Oh, go with the flow.
Yeah, there you go.
Flow.
There you go.
Just flow.
3D best, brother.
I'm man.
Yeah, it was. It was actually. I remember it. I was trying to control the situation, and that was driven by the anxiety that to do that. But that's very interesting. I like that.
And it's funny because people they think there's these big answers out there, you know what I mean? But it's actually really fucking simple. Like I feel
that.
like we as humans just overcomplicate it.
I like that.
Like life is not this fucking big mystery. It's actually quite simple when you narrow it down. And it's like life is the way it is, only always.
Yeah. And if you have love in your life.
Exactly. And it's like, it's just like everything that's happened was like exactly what was supposed to happen because that's what fucking happened.
Yeah. Wow. Look, I've really, really enjoyed this conversation with you guys. Like, I think it's just so powerful. And like, I think I've learned a lot more than I actually thought, to be honest. I came in here wanting to learn more, but I always come in with the mindset of I'm right till proven wrong. And you guys have like proved so many of my theories wrong, which that's a good way, not a negative way. It's a good thing. And I love that. So thank you guys so much, for being able to do that. Bro. Yeah, I really, really appreciate it. What time are we at?
We're at an hour, but can we do audience questions?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Jeez.
I guess a bit
questions of an
Okay, all right.
Hey, this wasn't part of the deal.
Wait. If you want to ask a question, I think you should come up and then ask your question on my mic. All right, guys, this is for everyone listening. Thank you so much for listening so far. I think this is going to be a really valuable part of the segment, probably one of the best bits. So stick around, just listen to some of these questions that some of the audience actually have an audience for this podcast, which is unusual. But that's why I'm a little bit off beat. I'm a bit nervous because I'm not used to it. I feel like I'm performing rather than just chilling. But anyway, I'm not. You know what? I'm going to go in the flow.
There you go.
There
you go. That's what, man.
All right, cool. So I'm going to throw it over. I got Mitch Bayless. He's going to ask his question.
Questions, eh? Hot seat. We're in the hot seat.
Jeez.
Oh, we'll jump in and everything? Yes.
Pressure. Yeah. I'm sure it's a deep question.
It's deep-ish. What's up, guys?
What's up, bro?
So you guys have obviously been through like really extreme sort of situations, and that's brought you into Amend. What do you think Amend can do for someone who might be struggling with like less serious circumstances, but definitely still needs a little bit of self-reflection and like a community to help them through that?
I feel like there's no sliding scale of like traumatic experiences. Like what's traumatic for me might not be traumatic for somebody else.
Yes.
So I feel like it's just trauma, or it's not. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I feel like whatever they're going through, this said person, like they're the exact kind of people that we welcome into our community with open arms.
Yeah.
And I don't really know.
I know 100% all that they're going to get is love.
Yeah, that's great.
Sorry, that word again. He's trying
that's a good answer.
But seriously, that's
a good
all
answer.
they get. Like, you come into our space, we're just going to hug you, love you,
That's good. Just with I think one thing a lot of men might have struggles with is hearing stories like your guys' story and comparing them to what they've gone through, and then looking at that and being like, oh, like I've got no reason to feel the way I do.
Bro,
these guys are doing
common.
well, and
it's so common.
yeah, I think it's important for guys to know that there's no problem too small.
No.
Oh, bro.
Yeah.
Everyone's
100%.
like, my problem's way different to your problems, different to Gush's problems, you know? So everyone's different.
Absolutely.
Everyone feels different. Everyone like feels anger different. Everyone feels love different. There's no scale to that.
Yep.
My shit could be so much deeper than anyone else's stuff, but his stuff might be, there's
Well, if it's
no
the
scale on
deepest
that.
thing they've ever gone through, that's
Yeah.
still an extreme to them.
Yeah, exactly.
Even though it may not be that
Everyone's
for someone else.
different, yeah.
100%. And it's like we all carry around a backpack of shit, right?
Yep.
But I feel like at our spaces is the opportunity to just unload that backpack either fully or just a little bit, just to lighten the load. And then hopefully that gets the ball rolling into what could be their own sort of personal development journey, I guess you want to call it that.
Yeah, great. Awesome. Thanks heaps for the work you guys are doing. Keep it up.
Thank you, brother.
Thank you,
great.
bro.
You guys?
I want these guys in the workshop, bro. I want these guys to come on the workshop,
Any
bro.
questions? Oh my god, I was itching to talk. Hello.
Hello.
How's it going? Thanks guys so much for coming on. I have so many
I was
things.
sitting there taking notes. Look at she's read the Bible.
I was like itching. Like I was like, oh my god, I want to be part of this conversation so bad. So there's so many things that I wanted to talk about and ask. So firstly, love you guys. Love what you guys are doing
Thank you.
so much. So I was listening to like when you're talking about like the living in happiness and like living in sadness and stuff. When we want to live a good life, what does that mean to you? Like, what does a good life mean to you? Like, If you see that at the end of the day on your deathbed, like what do you see? Good, happy life.
That's a good question. That's a really good. I've never thought of that.
A good life to me is, all I think of when you say that is I'm just going to, when I go, people are just going to know me as, of what I preach and what I do,
Being authentic.
not what I've done, like in my past.
I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Because the thing that I was thinking about when you guys are talking about like happiness and sadness and going with the flow of everything, I'm a big believer in that too. Like I'm like, everything happens for a reason, and like the only thing we can control is our state. But I think that we have to work so hard to live in a happy state, because like in life we can focus on the good and we can focus on the bad. So what habits do you guys have now that you didn't have that help you stay grounded?
awareness. And it's like, I know speaking from before, I never had any, but it's like now knowing obviously that bad things are going to pop up, but being okay and having the awareness to know how to pivot from those bad experiences, if that makes sense. And same thing with the good things. Like the good things are like, yeah, okay, like this is happening. Same thing with the bad thing. This is happening for me. What's this trying to teach me? And it's, I guess it's about finding a lesson in that and then sort of moving on from there.
So would you say in a sense that the biggest shift was just how you view things, your perspective
100%.
is what changed your life?
I mean, we're all programmed to look at, we could do 1,000 good things. We're always going to pick on that one. Like the reviews, for example, like the messages, right? He might get 100 good messages, but he'll always pick on that one bad one, because that's how we're programmed, right?
Survival.
It's fight or flight. Like,
but you also got to acknowledge the good and the bad, you know?
100%.
So
we only learn from like the challenging
exactly.
and
So
adversity.
When I'm going through my shitty days, I'm like, you know what? I'm having a terrible day, but you know, I've got all these tools that can help me get through them. So
and what
Jason,
tools would they be like for you?
for me,
communication.
Communication. Yeah. So communication with myself first and foremost. Having my daily affirmations. That is just a powerful tool in itself, and I sort of took it for granted because, I was just like, why am I saying all these good things about me? Because I would never say good things about me, but there's 90% people like don't like hearing good things about themselves, and that's one thing that I've taken away is that having that self-talk and being like and saying my affirmations and, especially saying it to the mirror, that at first was very uncomfortable, but, like the more I say it and actually believe in, I'm going to be it.
You embody it, eh?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, 100%.
So my affirmations and my gratitudes are a massive tool for me.
And I'd love to hear like your thoughts, because I know you guys didn't touch on it too much, but like I meditate.
I knew you were going to say that.
I know that you boys do, and like Dennis.
See you, bro.
Yeah. I wish Dennis kind of spoke on that a
My
bit.
entire podcast is turning into a meditation. Every single episode.
Hey, you
I'm
wait till
trying
you
to
get breath
convert
work.
you.
Wait till you get into breath work. Like we do breath work at our workshops, and that's the next level.
So I'd love to know your thoughts, because like when did you start that? Do you feel like that's been another tool to help you guys stay really grounded and in tune with like your emotion and like your awareness?
I started mine the day I started doing all of this stuff and meditate. As long as I get my meditation and cold showering in the morning, like I feel like they're the two things that I really need to start my day. For me, meditation, because what was your question? What is it to us?
Yeah, like how do you feel like it's helped you, and like when did you start it? So
for me, it just calms my mind. Like we all wake up, for me anyway, I wake up in the morning and like your first thing, your mind's just going 100 miles an hour. For me, it just helps me like slow that right down and just like think, okay, what do I need right now? And just allow thoughts to come and go and just be with those thoughts, not try to hold on to anything. And then just allow those thoughts to flow and just empty out. And then when I come out of it, I'm like, like I'm relaxed now. I can go about my day.
cool.
Just being in the present, I guess. Being here and now,
Yeah, definitely.
rather than focusing on everything else. And
No, I agree so much.
Try it, bro.
Yeah,
Just give it a try. 5 minutes. 5 minutes.
to try it so
We'll
bad.
convert you.
Yeah, because I think there's like so much stigma attached to it too, which
And you spoke
it's
about that on the podcast,
yeah,
right? Like
yeah.
you don't think this is these like monks in a cave, like
yeah. And just one thing I wanted to talk about and just see if we can like talk about this a little bit more, because it was kind of only just slightly touched on about when you guys talked about the notion of kids and bringing that, like how you would raise your kids with the notion of how your experiences. I can kind of see where Dennis is talking about, but I think it can be worded better in my personal experience, if I had a kid and they were going through an emotional state and they don't know how to deal with their emotions, I would validate, that's the key word, validate what they're feeling, not say it's wrong for them to feel that way, but if there's a time and place where it could be done better for them to maybe explore those feelings a bit more, I would say, I understand how you're feeling. Do you think that we could talk about it later? So it's like the conversation's still open, but there's also we have a responsibility for, that's where he shifted my perspective in that last podcast where he was talking about his nephew. When in a team and you guys play sports and rugby and stuff, you have a responsibility to show up and be a part of a team. So his nephew was getting too consumed with his emotions and not able to play the sport. But if it was me and my child, I'd be like, I validate you're feeling this way and I'd love to talk about you like it later, but you have a responsibility, like, your teammates need you.
Yeah. 100%.
What do you think about that way of wording things?
You definitely have to acknowledge how they're feeling, because the way that, especially Dennis was talking about, and the way that I grew up was like, nah, shut up, move on, which is you're just pushing them back down. Their feelings, they're just going to come back up again in another form or the same way. But I definitely think the first thing to do is acknowledging how they're feeling. And then if you're in a space like, say, a sports thing, being able to create that space later on for them to speak about it more. Like 100%, you're bang on the money with that. I agree totally with that.
Because I think I worked with kids, I was a swimming instructor a little bit, and I just saw them really get overwhelmed with certain emotions. And I personally would be like, it's okay, like you can feel this way, but also try distract them in a way that wasn't not validating their feelings, but also just because they would build a situation up in their heads because they don't know how to process their own feelings yet. So I was like, distract them and like make them feel good, because my mentality was, I learned from a young age, that we have the power to control our state, and I want to teach them that at a young age, so they can change their state by we feel what we focus on.
100%.
So
yeah.
I guess if you're talking to the kids, like a big thing for me is safety. As long as the kids feel like they're safe, they're gonna be like, you know what, I'm not saying in that not in that situation when on the field, just because I work with the youth every day, so I'm a youth worker at a behavioural school, and so a big thing is like trying to communicate with them, and when they're going through their emotional stages, like I don't advise for people to shut them down, because they're going to shut it down, and they probably might not talk about that until they're 20 years down the track, and that's still going to affect them.
How do you cope when the boys or girl, it's just boys, isn't it?
Yeah, all boys.
All boys, yeah.
Yeah.
When they're like having an emotional response, it's like probably.
I'm just making sure that they're calm, and I'm just telling them to breathe, and I'm breathing with them.
Oh, cool.
So like obviously I had a boy kick off today, and I was just telling him like, bro, you're safe. I've got you, because once they go through that emotional state, they're not obviously. They're using their back, is it the back or the front part of their brain, and they're just shut off, and they're going through all their emotions and stuff. So it's like the first two words that you're really getting across to them. So you're safe. I'm really relaying that to them, and just breathing with them. And so breathe nice and slow, deep, 3 deep breaths, and just making sure that they can get their heart rate down so that they can think clearer.
I love that.
So,
and how can people really resist when there's this love?
But a big thing is also obviously going down to their level, because like you don't want to be standing up here and telling them, because then they're going to feel like, oh shit.
Oh yeah, cool.
That's come down to their level so that they feel, that they are comfortable and safe.
Yeah, cool.
The big thing is safety for everything. Like,
cool.
And that's what we preach out in Amend as well.
As long as you feel safe, you're going to like allow yourself to talk about whatever it is you might be feeling. And I feel like that goes for anywhere. Like if you allow anybody to feel safe, they're going to be like, okay, this person's making me feel something I might have never felt before. So I'm going to talk about something I've never talked about before.
Cool. Oh, nice. So I just wanted to throw those ideas out there. I wanted to talk the whole time, but I was like, no. Thanks, Dennis. Yeah, that's right.
All right. The host is back.
Big dog's back.
Get some real energy going. No, that's all good. Hey, boys, again, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I hope everybody that was listening, you guys got a lot out of it. I just want to end it, just last couple of things. If anybody is going through anything, can they get in contact with you? Can they get into contact with the men? Can they find out more information? Give me some information for the people that they can get more if they need more.
Yeah, 100%. We got obviously our Instagram,
_movement
Facebook.
on Instagram. You can reach out on the page if you're going through something.
No matter where you are in Australia as well. So we got guys down in Sydney, Melbourne, Gold Coast, Brisbane, over in New Zealand.
Yeah. So the Amend Instagram page is, what is it?
Amend_movement.
Okay, on Instagram. And then Cayden, what's your Instagram?
Cayden.
Are you happy for people to reach out?
Cayden 10.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm happy for anyone to reach out.
Awesome.
Yeah,
And then
happens
doors
anyway.
always
Jason,
open.
Jason Gush is my one.
Okay, cool. How do you spell your last?
GUSH.
Okay.
Yeah,
Cool.
That's but yeah, reach out to us on there.
Yeah. And guys, I'll put it down in description. So if you're listening on Spotify or iTunes or you're watching the YouTube clips and stuff, I'll make sure to put the Amend, Jason and Cayden's Instagram. So if you do have any questions and you want to talk more about any of these topics, probably best not to talk to me just because I don't really, I'm only learning just like you guys. So
I just want to thank you for having us on today. And I know listening to your podcast last week and your views on it. And I think acknowledgement needs to go to you for being open to obviously hearing other people's views and willing to accept that too. So
Yeah,
I just want to thank you for having us on again, bro. And I really appreciate it.
honestly, it's been an absolute pleasure, guys. And just thank you for making the time to do this and opening up and sharing with your audience. And we'll definitely keep in touch anyway.
Yeah,
Go hang out.
we'll have to come to a workshop sometime. Bro.
Yeah.
We'll get you.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Unpack some
There's
stuff there,
there's
brother.
something in there, bro. I can see it.
And then I'm going to be like,
Let it out,
Hey, bro,
brother.
you're not meant to cry.
no,
Let
that's
it out,
cool.
brother. It's all right. You're safe.
All right, boys. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone, for subscribing to The Great Unloading. Make sure you check out our YouTube channel. We also do YouTube clips where you can actually get little clips of this podcast that you may be able to share with somebody that you care about, or if you just don't want to listen to the whole thing, that's okay too. But make sure you check it out. Subscribe. Thank you. Peace.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
That was fun.
That was good.
That's a good one.
Oh my god.